Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist as well as a body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing the behavior and body language of President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping during their meeting in South Korea. Before we get started, a couple of quick things. One, I wanted to make sure you know this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. Today we're going to start by analyzing their initial meeting. We're going to be looking at President Trump and President Xi when they first interact. All right, let's just jump right in.
Mr. President, the President.
Now, the first thing you're noticing is the smile on his face. Now, this is just a polite smile, something that people do frequently, but you can see that him doing that as he sees President Xi walking towards him signals that he really is going to be trying to get along during this. We saw some similar behavior when he met with President Putin, but there are going to be some distinct differences as well. Let's just keep going.
Of the People's Republic of China.
Something else you probably noticed is that he extended his hand well before President Xi got there. That's meant to be a welcoming behavior. When we're unconsciously really trying hard to get along with somebody, we might do something like that. So what we're not seeing right there, at least not with him extending his hand in that way, we're not seeing a power play. It's showing an eagerness to get along, an eagerness to introduce.
Mr. President, the President of the People's Republic of China.
See, doing that does not wait for him to get there. It can be a much stronger power play if somebody gets there and then you wait for them to reach out to shake your hand. So the fact that he's doing it first does imply that he really is trying to do something as far as getting along here. There's no overt power plays happening yet. Now, something else we're noticing here, because I've talked about this previously, I talked about this when he met with President Putin, is that sometimes he'll grab people by the hand and pull them towards him. He's done this with President Macron. He's done it in front of cameras. Cameras being there does not make him shy away from doing that. But we didn't see him do that here, which once again, I think he's got something he wants to accomplish, and he's going to be trying to accomplish that by being friendly, by not doing things that are overt power plays. You also see his hand on President Xi's back. He pats him on the back. It's meant to be friendly. Unconsciously, we're doing that to connect with somebody else. And he also has his head turned. He's trying to look him directly in the eye. So he's trying to connect with him in pretty much every way that's conceivable. So right now, what we're seeing is someone who is trying to connect, not someone who's trying to dominate.
President of the People's Republic of China.
You also saw that President Trump stepped forward a little bit. Once again, that's a way to feel closer to somebody. So for him, he is trying to build a relationship right now. He's leaning forward a little bit as well. So the goal of this, it's very different than when he met with President Putin. That was very warm. That was one where he was trying to be very friendly. He was more expressive. This is also meant to connect, but it's in a very different way. This doesn't seem like a friendship. This seems more like a business partnership or something like that. So his body language, while still attempting to connect, is not as warm as it was with President Putin.
Good to meet you. Great pleasure to see you again.
Good to see you again.
Now, President Xi, this is pretty typical for him. He doesn't have a lot of strong facial expressions. He's less expressive than President Trump. So what we're seeing from President Xi right now is pretty much what we would expect.
Me too.
And we're going to have a very successful meeting, I have no doubt.
Now, one thing you might notice, at least this is what it appears to be, it's a little bit hard to tell, but it appears that President Trump has a pretty strong grip right now. Now, he didn't pull President Xi towards him, but it could be that he's providing a very strong grip with his handshake, so there may be some minor power plays going on right here, but nothing too strong.
Again.
Good to see you again.
But you see how President Trump keeps looking at President Xi. That's an attempt to connect. When we want to be around somebody, when we want to connect with them, we try to meet them in the eyes or to look at their face. And he continues to try to do that. The challenge is that because they speak two different languages, they're going to miss each other a lot, but there is an attempt to connect.
Me too.
And we're going to have a very successful meeting, I have no doubt. But he's a very tough negotiator. That's not good. We know each other.
One thing you're going to notice is that President Trump, this is pretty typical of him also, is to smile, to laugh. He likes to get along with people in that way. When that's not reflected back, it's hard to keep up that energy. And because President Xi just doesn't tend to be that way, he's not reflecting it back. I don't think that it's a sign of unfriendliness, but President Trump abandons that very, very quickly. Watch this right here.
But he's a very tough negotiator. That's not good.
You see him looking down after that interaction right there. And to me, that says that he's realizing he's going to keep this strictly business. Some of the warmth and the friendliness is probably going to be less effective. So we are not going to see as much of that after this moment.
That's not good.
但是他是很强硬谈判者哦，这不好。
We know each other well.
我们相互之间非常了解。
This expression here shows a little bit of discomfort. You saw President Trump's blink rate pick up a little bit as well. There's a little bit of discomfort with that interaction.
我们相互之间非常了解。Mr. President, do you plan to sign a trade deal today?
Could be.
Now, you see his eyebrows go up when he said, do you plan to sign a trade deal today? He said, could be. That's something he feels very strongly. He really wants to emphasize that could actually happen. So as he's talking about that, I think he actually means that. He does genuinely believe a trade deal could be signed.
Mr. President, do you plan to sign a trade deal today?
Could be.
See how high up his eyebrows went?
I think we'll have a great understanding.
但是我们会达成很好的
We
理
have a
解。
great relationship. We've always had a great relationship.
我们之间的关系很好，关系总是很好。
我们之间的关系。
那问题是不是还在问美国的大众 Will you discuss Taiwan, sir?
Now, he was already initiating leaving, but after this question was asked, you see him put his hand on President Xi's back. And that's basically signaling, I am going to be in control of this and move this along. I'm going to go ahead and exit this situation. So this is very, very similar to how he handled, once again, how he handled the situation with President Putin.
Which way? Thank you very much.
Now we're going to look at a little bit of this from a different angle because it shows us a little bit more.
Mr. President, the President of the People's Republic of China.
Now, I want you to pay attention to President Trump's feet. So right now, he's standing with his feet pointing directly forward, as one would if they're standing this way.
Mr. President, the President of the People's Republic of China.
So as President Xi walks up, you can see his foot points directly at him. Now, you might go, well, obviously it does. He's facing him to talk to him. But that's not always the case. The way that we direct our feet, the way we point our feet, oftentimes suggests how we feel about something. You can be talking to somebody and your feet may be pointing towards the exit because you want to get out of there. You'd be surprised at how much of a difference the direction our feet actually makes. Let's watch this again and see where it goes.
Mr. President, the President of the People's Republic of China.
So as you can see, President's left foot is pointing more directly at President Xi, whereas President Xi's feet are pointing directly forward. Now, the difference here suggests that President Trump wants to make this a little bit more friendly, whereas President Xi is seeing this more as purely business. He probably doesn't have that same desire to make things a little bit more personal because President Trump just has a tendency to do that with world leaders.
Mr. President, do you plan to sign a trade deal today?
Could be. I think we'll have a great understanding.
但是我们会达成很好的
We have
理
a
解。
great relationship. We've always had a great relationship.
So after President Trump talked about this trade deal, you could hear it getting translated, and then you see President Xi's chin go up. Now, this is probably the most pronounced body language that President Xi has had during all of this. And what it suggests is that there is a sense of pride about this, that there is a sense of strength and confidence. So the automatic chin going up suggests that he has no interest in being submissive about anything regarding a trade deal. So we saw probably the strongest body language coming from Xi after that statement.
I think we'll have a great understanding.
但是我们会达成很好的
We
理
have a
解。
great relationship. We've always had a great relationship.
Now we're very briefly going to look at President Trump and President Xi towards the end of this trade deal negotiation.
And it feels very warm seeing you again because it's been many years. Since your re-election, we have spoken on the phone.
So as you can see, as President Xi is speaking, President Trump is nodding. And a big part of that is that he shows a lot of body language. President Trump just expresses however he's feeling. So it's very different when you see President Xi hearing something translated because he has very little to no reaction, whereas President Trump reacts to most everything.
Phone 3 times, exchanged several letters, and stayed in close contact. And our joint guidance, China-US relations.
Now, it's also interesting that we see President Trump pull his hands out and cross his fingers like this. Watch what I'm talking about right here.
Contact.
This is how President Trump oftentimes sits at the White House. You see him take this position a lot, and for him, this is a position of power. So as they're speaking right now, this isn't him trying to gain power in that situation, but he's trying to appear powerful.
And our joint guidance, China-US relations have remained stable on the whole. Given our different national conditions, We do not always see eye to eye with each other.
Now, that's interesting. One thing he did show, watch President Xi's hands right here.
National conditions, we do not always see eye to eye with each other.
So when he's saying we don't always see eye to eye with each other, that is something he actually likely feels because you saw his hands open up right there.
And it is normal for the two leading economies of the world.
And now President Trump is doing de-steepling, which you've probably heard me talk about if you've ever seen one of my videos, which is a way to appear to be an expert. That's him trying to show a power sign right now. So that is an attempt to maintain a sense of power and authority.
To have frictions now and then. And in the face of winds, waves, and challenges, you and I, at the helm of China-US relations, should stay the right course and ensure the steady sailing forward of the giant ship of China-US relations.
Now, he withdrew the steepling because I think in some sense he may have felt it was too strong. And this is all unconscious, but he may have felt like that body language was too much for the moment. So he withdrew his hands and put them below the table.
I always believe that China's development goes hand in hand with your vision to make America great again.
Distinguished and respected President of China, and we will be having some discussions. I think we've already agreed to a lot of things, and we'll agree to some more right now. But President Xi is a great leader of a great country, and I think we're going to have a fantastic relationship for a long period of time.
All right, we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. Hopefully this is helping you better understand some of the behavior and body language that we saw. It was very interesting to see President Trump start out very strong, start out trying to be very warm and connected, but over time, his body language ended up reflecting a bit more of President Xi's. President Xi is someone who doesn't give a lot in terms of body language. He doesn't react strongly, so you don't have a lot to work with in that way. And President Trump tends to work a lot off of how people are reacting. And because President Xi doesn't react as strongly, I don't think he reacts as strongly either. So we actually saw him reflecting the Chinese president's body language to an extent because the Chinese president's body language is so even. If you have any other thoughts about this, or if there's anything else you want me to analyze, please let me know in the comments below. Last thing before we get finished up is I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.